This video is brought to you by True Tales of Buried Treasure, the largest collection of old treasure magazines in the West. We're pleased to announce that we are now selling our physical magazines directly on our website. You can browse by magazine title or search for a particular issue using the search bar. To pay us a visit, please click the link in the description. Enjoy. Colorado is considered one of the richest states in terms of treasure lore, ranking third in the nation for the sheer number of potential treasure sites. The state's landscape is filled with stories of lost mines, robberies, Indian raids, outlaw caches, abandoned forts, and nearly 700 ghost towns or near ghost towns. This mix of history and mystery makes Colorado an irresistible destination for treasure seekers and adventurers alike. For those in pursuit of gold, Colorado also ranks second among the gold-producing states. By 1965, its total gold output had reached about 40,766,000 ounces. The state's first widely publicized gold strike came in 1858, sparking a rush to the Denver area and leading to important placer discoveries near Idaho Springs and Central City. Prospectors continued pushing into the mountains, uncovering gold along the Arkansas River Valley near Leadville in 1859. Soon, many rich lodes were discovered, and Colorado quickly developed into a major mining region. The 1870s brought even more discoveries, particularly in the San Juan Mountains, the Sawatch Range, and the Leadville-Breckenridge area. Then, in 1891, the Cripple Creek District revealed itself to be one of the most important gold-producing regions in American history. Among Colorado's treasure legends is one little-known cache that might sound like pure fantasy if it weren't for records printed in the Western Mountaineer of Golden, Colorado in 1861 and 1862. Near Denver, along the headwaters of Cherry Creek in Douglas County, it is said that 400 gold slugs, each weighing about 3.5 pounds, were hidden away. Each was cast in the shape of a four-leaf clover. The story begins in the early summer of 1860, when Thomas Gavin, a Denver resident, struck a deal with Clark, Gruber and Company, a private mint operating at what is now 16th and Market Streets. At that time, there was no U.S. government mint in Denver, so Clark Gruber coins, minted from raw gold, were widely accepted as legal tender. Gavin's task was to buy gold from local miners at reduced prices, which the company could then melt and strike into $5, $10, and $20 coins. Gavin soon realized that the farther he ventured from Denver, the less he had to pay for gold, since miners faced transportation challenges. To manage the growing workload, he partnered with Peter Larkin and James Bullock, promising each a quarter of the profits. The mint was hungry for raw gold, and within a short time the trio had acquired 700 pounds of the metal, much of it stored in bottles and jars. Gavin decided to melt it into bars for easier handling. Using a bellows made of deerskin, they generated enough heat to melt the gold. For molds, they turned to an unusual item, an Indian-made pumice stone dish in the shape of a four-leaf clover, brought in by Larkin. Gavin poured the molten gold into this mold, and soon stacks of heavy golden clovers were ready to be packed into saddlebags. That night after supper, Bullock produced a deck of cards suggesting a friendly game of draw poker. At first, beans were used as tokens, but the stakes quickly escalated, each man gambling with his share of the fortune. Gavin lost heavily at first, but around midnight his luck turned. By the time the game ended, Bullock had lost the equivalent of his $2,000 share in gold, while Larkin had barely broken even. Gavin, the clear winner, now controlled nearly all of the treasure. When the men retired, Gavin noticed Larkin discreetly pass a pistol to Bullock. By morning, tensions were high. As the three loaded the gold onto pack animals and set out, Gavin placed Larkin in the lead, Bullock behind the pack horses and himself at the rear. A few miles into the journey, Bullock shot Gavin in the shoulder. Wounded but not beaten, Gavin returned fire and killed Bullock. Larkin then turned on Gavin, but was also shot dead. Bleeding heavily, Gavin realized he could not continue with the gold. He buried the treasure in a marmot hole near the headwaters of Cherry Creek before making his way downstream. Eventually, he reached a doctor, but infection had already set in, and he soon died of gangrene. Before his death, Gavin confided the location of the buried gold to his young son. Despite searching, the boy never located the hidden cache. To this day, it remains one of the state's most intriguing lost treasures, an inviting mystery for modern researchers. Not all of Colorado's wonders involve hidden wealth. For rock collectors and gem enthusiasts, a small mountain in central Colorado offers another kind of treasure. Ruby Mountain, named for the perfectly formed deep red garnets found there, is a geological marvel. Its summit is composed of rhyolite, a light gray volcanic rock that once contained small gas pockets, perfect formations for garnets to crystallize within. The northwest slope of the mountain has also yielded Apache tears, a form of black obsidian. Ruby Mountain is easy to find. It lies directly east across the Arkansas River from the town of Nathrop in Chaffee County. A good gravel road crosses the river about 2 miles north of town, leading directly to the mountain's base. Today, the land is public, offering parking spaces and even picnic tables along the riverbank, making it a welcoming spot for families, collectors, and anyone eager to discover Colorado's natural and legendary treasures. In the rugged Mesa de Maya region of southern Colorado, a legend has endured for centuries. It begins shortly after the year 1700, when Spanish records tell of a sizable regiment that departed Santa Fe. Their mission was straightforward but perilous. Follow the old Spanish trail eastward to deliver payroll to the distant garrison at St. Augustine, Florida. This expedition carried 12 heavy chests of gold coins, intended to pay the soldiers defending the Spanish outpost on the Atlantic seaboard. The caravan was commanded by a hard-driving officer named Captain Garasco Rodriguez, a man known for his determination. The gold had been shipped at great cost and risk along El Camino del Rey, traveling across the mountains and deserts of Mexico before reaching Santa Fe. Now, it was entrusted to Rodriguez and his men for the long overland march. At first, the journey went well, but Rodriguez, seeking a faster route, decided to deviate from the well-known trail. "We can make better time traveling northeast, then turning southeast," he told his men. It was a fatal miscalculation. Winter caught them in the high country, near what is now Trinidad, Colorado. Heavy snows forced the regiment to make camp. They stayed through the long, bitter season, waiting for spring thaws. When the snows finally melted, they pushed on again, hoping to reconnect with a route that would eventually lead them to Florida. But the wilderness proved merciless. Rodriguez and his men became hopelessly lost. Months passed, then a year. In St. Augustine, the garrison received no word from Santa Fe. The soldiers waited in vain, but the shipment of gold never arrived. It was presumed lost forever. Decades later, an old Apache war chief revealed the fate of the caravan. He told an Indian trader, "Many years ago, my people destroyed a band of Spaniards who wintered in our land. We found their camp and struck by surprise. They had many fine weapons, rum, and supplies. We cared nothing for their heavy chests of gold. Those we hid in a cave." According to the chief, the Apaches valued scalps, guns, and liquor far more than gold. They took what they could use and left the treasure behind, hidden away somewhere in the caves of the Mesa de Maya. Over the years, pieces of old Spanish armor occasionally surfaced in Apache villages, lending weight to the story. Then, in 1924, the legend stirred once more. A skeleton and a rusty firearm were discovered in a cave east of the Willow Vogel Canyon Junction. The find reawakened speculation that the Spanish payroll, 12 chests of gold coins, was still buried in the area, waiting for a determined treasure hunter to uncover it. For those fascinated not only by lost Spanish treasure, but also by the turbulent history of Colorado, the state offers numerous Civil War-era battle sites worth exploring. Athens Ranch, August 22, 1864. Big Sandy, November 29, 1864. Cedar Bluffs, May 3, 1864. Fremont, April 12, 1864. Little Lermian, August 5, 1865. Smoky Hill, May 16, 1864. Valley Station, January 15, 1865. Together, these stories, of gold lost in the mountains and of soldiers clashing on the plains, paint a picture of Colorado as both a land of mystery and a crossroads of American history. There is a strange mystery tied to the mountains north of Pagosa Springs, Colorado. Unlike most tales of lost mines or caches of gold and silver, this story carries with it something far more chilling, a missing chapter of history. It is a tale of bloodshed, skeletons, cavalry sabers, and vanished soldiers, told by a man who swore he saw it with his own eyes. Several years ago, a hunter named Bill Tapp and 4 companions were tracking deer in the wilderness near Pagosa Springs. At one point, Bill separated from the group to stalk a large buck. He fired a shot and struck the animal, but the deer staggered to its feet and fled up the mountainside. Determined, Bill chased after it. The trail led him to a massive rock wall, where he spotted the deer slipping into a deep crevice. Rifle in hand, Bill followed cautiously, expecting to finish the hunt. Instead, what he found would haunt him for the rest of his life. Passing through the narrow crevice, Bill stepped into a hidden meadow surrounded by sheer cliffs. Tall grass swayed beneath the trees, but his attention was quickly drawn to the ground. His heart nearly stopped. Scattered all around were bleached skeletons of men and horses. Rusted sabers, broken rifles, rotted boots, and the remains of saddles lay among the bones. It dawned on him that he had stumbled upon what could only be the lost company of U.S. cavalrymen. Overcome by the horror of the discovery, Bill forgot the deer entirely. He backed out of the meadow, returned through the crevice, and hurried back to his companions. When he told them of his discovery, some wanted to return immediately, but Bill refused, shaken by what he had seen. The following day, the party went in search of the site, but no matter how hard they looked, they could not find the mysterious crevice again. The meadow and the grim remains it held seemed to have vanished. This mystery remains one of Colorado's strangest treasures, not of gold or silver, but of history itself, a secret battlefield lost to time. Another tale comes from 1917, when a cattleman named Henry Huff was murdered by John Keski. On his deathbed, Huff tried to dictate a will, leaving his possessions to his friend Carl Akers. But his words were confused, and the state of Colorado refused to recognize deathbed wills. Officials declared, "The state of Colorado has all claims to anything that is found." What was left behind? Huff had recently sold a herd of cattle for $5,500 in gold coins. He was also known to keep gold nuggets and dust hidden around his cabin in Bull Canyon, east of the Dolores River, between Bedrock and Naturita in Montrose County. That cash, if ever found, would today be worth around $50,000. Another legend tells of a pack train of 5 gold miners traveling east from California. Each of the 5 pack animals carried 2 heavy bags of gold. As they circled south of Durango, they entered Ute Indian territory and came across a small hunting camp. Only women and children were present, and they fled at the sight of strangers. The miners meant no harm, but hunger drove 2 of them to dismount and help themselves to meat roasting over the fire. As they remounted, one horse shied, knocking a teepee onto the flames. In their haste to catch up, they did not realize they had set the camp ablaze. That night, the party camped along the Piedra River opposite the mouth of Stolsteimer Creek. At dawn, as one man went to fetch the stock, the Utes struck in revenge. 4 of the miners were killed instantly. The 5th man escaped, hiding as he watched the Indians strip the camp. The Utes took everything of value, except the 10 sacks of gold. Having no use for it, they dumped the treasure into a shallow ravine and covered it. The lone survivor fled east and never returned. Later, a Ute told a white trapper, "We killed miners and threw yellow iron in ravine, then cover it." But we never tell where to this day. Treasure hunters speculate that those 10 bags of gold still lie buried near where Stolsteimer Creek meets the Piedra. At least 25 stagecoach robberies took place near Colorado Springs in the early mining days. One of the most dramatic occurred in 1862, when the town was known as Colorado City. On an August afternoon, outlaws Manny Preston, Cy Samuels, and 6 companions rode into the village an hour before the stage was due to depart. They rode out and set an ambush north of town. When the stage appeared, the guard was shot dead, the driver wounded. A passenger was ordered. throw out them money bags. The haul was estimated at $50,000 in gold. The outlaws escaped, burying the treasure somewhere in the hills outside Colorado Springs. Each of these stories, whether a lost cavalry unit, a murdered cattleman's hidden coins, gold dumped in a ravine by Utes, or outlaw loot from a stagecoach, remains an unsolved mystery. Colorado's mountains still hold secrets, waiting for the lucky or the persistent to uncover them. After their bold 1862 stagecoach robbery near Colorado City, outlaws Manny Preston, Cy Samuels, and their gang rode north with $50,000 in gold. But their arrogance cost them dearly. A patrol of volunteer cavalry, already hunting the Reynolds gang, stumbled upon the stage just minutes after the holdup. They quickly overtook the bandits. For 2 hours, a fierce battle raged. By the end, 6 outlaws were dead. Only Preston and Samuels escaped with the loot, but their horses gave out before midnight, forcing them to continue on foot. The gold was far too heavy to carry for long. Deep in the timber, they came upon an abandoned prospector's shack. Here, Preston turned to Samuels and said, "We better hide the gold and find food and horses before we leave the state." The 2 men dug a grave-shaped hole and placed the treasure inside. To disguise it, they carved Manny Preston, 1862, into a flat stone and set it at the head of the mock grave. To any passerby, it would look like a genuine burial site. The cache was hidden on the left bank of Kiowa Creek, about 3 miles south of present-day Elbert in Elbert County. The next afternoon, Preston and Samuels arrived at a stage station where they were fed and rested. Unfortunately for them, a detachment of Army troopers soon rode in. The soldiers searched and questioned the 2 outlaws, but finding no newly minted gold coins on them, released them. Preston and Samuels then slipped away, eventually reaching Kansas, where they found work in Wichita. Fate soon intervened. Samuels died from injuries in a runaway team accident. 6 years later, Preston returned alone to recover the hidden treasure. But no matter how hard he searched, he could not locate the prospector's cabin or the mock grave. To this day, treasure hunters speculate that somewhere along Kiowa Creek, 3 miles south of Elbert, lies a grave that holds not bones, but gold. Another legendary tale comes from 1849. Buchanan Buck. Rogers, leading a party of 30 men bound for the California goldfields, lingered in the mountains of Colorado. While most of the group pressed on westward, Rogers and 5 companions decided to prospect around Slate Mountain, near present-day Glenwood Springs in Garfield County. Their patience paid off. The 6 quietly uncovered a fabulously rich deposit. To keep it secret, they told no one. Through the summer and fall, they amassed gold valued between $60,000 and $100,000, a fortune in those days, hidden near their camp. As winter closed in, Rogers left with about $500 in dust and nuggets, heading for supplies. He spent 2 weeks in civilization before returning to camp. What he found broke him. A giant snowslide had obliterated the camp. His 5 companions and the hoard of gold were gone forever, buried under tons of ice and rock. Rogers never recovered. He sank into alcoholism, wandering and raving about the fortune he had lost on Slate Mountain. In 1891, hope flickered anew. A prospector named Arthur Fulford discovered ore samples and the remains of a cabin on Slate Mountain. But fate struck cruelly again. Fulford himself was killed in a snowslide before he could locate the vein or the cache. A few years later, a doctor obtained directions from Rogers' diary, written before his death. The instructions were detailed: go along Eagle River to the mouth of Brush Creek. Follow creek 5 miles to the forks. Take East Branch about 5 miles until you come to a shaft of rocks coming almost at water's edge. Follow Dry Gulch running north until you come to a small hole dug in the ground. Continue on until you come to another hole, and so on, until you come to a third hole. This line is also marked by blazed trees on both sides. From the third hole, turn due north, and about 200 feet from the last tree, you will see 3 tall trees standing in a triangle. The trees have their tops broken off about 30 feet up. This is about 300 feet from the timberline, and the vein runs north and south of the place described. To this day, no one has proven to have found the mine or the cache, But the description remains, waiting for some persevering treasure hunter to match it to the rugged terrain of Slate Mountain. In the brutal winter of 1848, famed explorer John C. Fremont and his men were trapped by heavy snow in the San Juan Mountains of Colorado. Their desperate camp came to be known as Camp Desolation. Supplies were gone, frostbite set in, and survival hung by a thread. Fremont sent several of his men south to Taos, New Mexico, to get help. Among them was Thomas E. Breckinridge, who entrusted Fremont with $1,200 in Spanish doubloons for safekeeping before leaving. The men eventually reached Taos, and another relief party rescued Fremont. But by then, Fremont had broken camp and was attempting to force his way out of the mountains. To survive, every ounce of unnecessary weight had been left behind. No record was ever made of the coins. Fremont never mentioned them, nor did any of his men. The implication is clear. Only Breckinridge and Fremont knew of the gold. Since Fremont abandoned Camp Desolation under extreme duress, the $1,200 in doubloons almost certainly still lies there, waiting to be uncovered. The site is believed to be at the head of Wanamaker Creek, between Mesa Peak and Palmer Mesa. Even if the gold is never found, the location would be a rich site for relic hunters. Artifacts of Fremont's desperate expedition might still lie hidden beneath the snow and soil. Another mystery comes from the Sangre de Cristo Mountains in Saguache County. In October of 1880, 3 prospectors, S.J. Hartman, E.R. Oliver, and H.A. Melton, were overtaken by a fierce blizzard while exploring near the head of Dead Man's Creek. Seeking shelter, the men discovered a cave. While waiting out the storm, they made pine torches and began to explore. A narrow tunnel, no more than 12 feet long, led them into a large chamber. From there, they followed a rough passage into an even larger room. Off this cavern, they found a smaller chamber lined with natural ledges. What they discovered there astonished them: 5 gold bars stacked neatly beneath a ledge. The storm eventually passed, and the men returned to camp with the bars, convinced more treasure remained hidden deeper within the cave. They memorized the site carefully, sure they could find it again. But when they returned in the spring, the cave was gone. Though they searched for days in the same canyon, they could not locate the entrance. Whether it had collapsed, been sealed by a landslide, or hidden by drifting snow, no one knows. The gold bars they carried out are proof enough of what lay within. Somewhere near Dead Man's Creek, a lost cave with its hidden chambers may still conceal the rest of the treasure, waiting for a determined explorer to rediscover it. Colorado, the Centennial State, has always been a crossroads of miners, outlaws, soldiers, and dreamers. And it still holds secrets beneath its soil. Whether hidden by snowslides, guarded by cliffs, or sealed in caves, these treasures continue to elude discovery. Perhaps they are waiting for a determined treasure hunter with a keen eye, the right tools, and a bit of luck to finally bring them back into the light. Or perhaps they are meant to remain forever part of the rugged wilderness, a reminder of the lives and legends that built the West. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to read the original article or purchase the magazine from which it was taken, please check out our website, truetalesofburiedtreasure.com.